Now let's jump into Fluke for real because we got to do a little more analysis here on these guys. Starting with the duo in Cincinnati, Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow. Listen, here's the thing with Ja'Marr Chase. 52.2. I'm not going to say fluke or for real because that's definitely a ceiling play. If he had another game like that this year, I'd go, yeah, that's Ja'Marr Chase. There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
He did it again. Probably gonna be his best game of the year. Maybe the best game of the next 3 years. Who knows? Incredible game for Ja'Marr Chase. Joe Burrow, 29.4 fantasy points, 36 for 46, 317 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's back.
Yeah, I think he's back. I wanted to. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. So, here's the only thing I want to mention.
Yep.
Only 125 yards of his 300 plus yards did not go to Ja'Marr Chase.
Right.
But is that a problem? No.
I don't think so.
Because Tua Tagovailoa owners have no problem that Tyreek Hill is amassing 180 plus yards of Tua's total passing yards. Kirk Cousins owners aren't upset when Justin Jefferson gets 150 yards. That's what it is. That's what happens. We have the best wide receiver in the NFL. Arguably, it's Ja'Marr Chase.
Right.
And I think Burrow's calf is just fine. Yeah. Somehow it really is fine.
Did you see the play? The scrambling around and finding Ja'Marr Chase on the sideline play?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, BS, you have a calf injury, dude. I was like, no shot. Dude. I was like, this looks like freaking Lamar Jackson scrambling around back here. What are we doing? Like, it was pretty awesome. I've got a stat, and I meant to have it in my notes, and I didn't write it down from my phone, and I'm going to find it real quick because Next Gen Stats puts together like a yards traveled, even like not like necessarily positive rushing yards or anything like that, but like moving around, like how much you moved around, how many yards you traveled on the ground in the game. And Joe Burrow, weeks 3 and 4 combined, had 97 yards traveled between those two games. Just 97 yards moving around, trying to find space for a pass. In week 5, he had 106 alone in week 5. He's back. He must be feeling good. He walked in a baller sweater that Kid Cudi dressed him in, and my goodness, he looked good. He played good. He felt good because 30 fantasy points is. I think he's back. I think he's here to stay. And maybe you want to sell high. Maybe there's somebody who's really buying in on Burrow again or whatever. Maybe I don't know. But I'm thinking Burrow's back here. And I think he's here to stay.
Hard to argue.
Should be good. And hey, and they get T. Higgins back, should be even better. So there you go. Should be a fun time there with a full fleet of weapons. I already mentioned him a little bit, and I mentioned his quarterback, but Gabe Davis, 22 points. He was my dud for week 5. 22 fantasy points. This is only his second game this season with more than 3 catches. 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. His 4th straight game with a touchdown. Is Gabe Davis just going to score 15 touchdowns this year? Like, is it like, is this what we're working with Gabe Davis? Because maybe it is. Like, I don't know. I mean, Gabe Davis at this point, I feel is if you're a Gabe Davis owner, I feel like he is a comfortable flex play for you every week now. I think he has to.
That's how I'll categorize it. If you already own Gabe Davis for real and roll him out for this boom bust potential that he has, and he's been booming for a few weeks. If you don't have Gabe Davis, don't try to trade for him. I mean, it's not that kind of a play. Yeah. It's too late now probably to trade for Jacoby Myers, but that's somebody that I would roll into my flex option and be very comfortable with. But Gabe Davis, if you own him, great. If you don't, I'm sure you've got another great flex option as well. But, for real, for the owners.
Yeah, For real. Calvin Ridley, 20.6 fantasy points, had a bounce-back game. We all were worried if we had gotten bamboozled after week 1 with this Jaguars offense. Calvin Ridley, 20.6, 8 targets, 7 catches for 122 yards. Had a couple of end-around plays for 14 rushing yards. Where you at on this, Wes?
For real. Because I believed in Ridley in the offseason, and I saw what happened in week 1, and it looked like the ball got spread thin the last couple of weeks, but I still am under the impression that Calvin Ridley is the favorite target, and especially as the season goes on, especially as you beat the Buffalo Bills, I think Ridley is... This is probably going to be a great game for Calvin Ridley's standards.
Sure.
But I think you'll be fine in that 15 to 20-point range for Ridley more often than not.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. And I don't think it's coincidence that the 3 games they've won this year that he has been involved. He has played a serious role. I know last week against the Falcons in London wasn't a huge game for Ridley, but he scores the touchdown. He's involved in the offense. 3 wins, 3 games where Ridley's involved. I think they're going to prioritize him and make sure he's involved. And I think there are probably 3 or 4 pass catchers in this offense you might be able to roll out as a flex play at worst. I mean, Zay Jones is a threat to score touchdowns. Christian Kirk seems like the PPR play. Evan Ingram is getting tons of targets. He had his first kind of week this week, but Evan Ingram's still pretty much a safety net for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, Evan Ingram nearly had a touchdown in the London game as well. So Jaguars offense, I think, is going to be okay. I think we're going to be all right. Trevor Lawrence had a good game for NFL standards. Fantasy, not so much, but it was still good to see.
Yeah.
Another guy to talk about here, Zack Moss. What are we doing? I feel foolish because I was a Zack Moss owner in a league. And when the news came out that Taylor was coming back and then he signed the contract, I'll be honest, I dropped Zack Moss. I dropped him because I was like, well, this isn't going to happen. I still won in the league where I had him and then I had dropped him, but it was I would be shocked if anyone played Zack Moss outside of a desperation play. With the news of Jonathan Taylor going against the Titans defense, I mean, I don't know what we're doing here. It's going to be hard for me to think that this kind of production will continue, but I think he could still have a role. Maybe there's a bit more of a tandem for the next couple weeks, but ultimately I think both of us agree that Jonathan Taylor is just going to feast.
Yeah, I see this as a surprising tandem for a little bit, but as we've learned with David Montgomery, when you give the bag to a running back, they will take the bulk of the carries. And perhaps this was just a coaching decision by Steichen to say, maybe it was even more beyond just let's make sure he's truly healthy. Let's not overwork him. You know, the way that Robert Saleh announced that Breece Hall was on a pitch count up until week 5, and Breece Hall completely dominated when they finally let him loose. Maybe that's what happened in Indianapolis, and they said, let's get you just back into the action a little bit and see what happens. But I do anticipate that in a couple of weeks, maybe even just 2, Jonathan Taylor is going to be the bell cow that he was previous 2 years. So for now, Zack Moss, maybe a flex option. Maybe. Yeah. But he's done too well for the Colts to not consider him. That's the last point I'll add. Yeah,
I agree. Definitely. And you think about Shane Steichen, the running backs they used in Philly when he was there as the offensive coordinator. Moss could have some matchup dependent, maybe flex value, something like that as the season goes on. But there will be a lead guy, and it will be Jonathan Taylor. So there you go. Someone who might be losing their lead job is Derrick Henry because Tyjae Spears, 16.9 fantasy points, 7 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches for 35 yards. I'm starting to think this is for real.
I'm starting to suspect that somebody somewhere in the Titans front office is saying, look, we got to see what we have in this rookie we drafted because we're not winning with Derrick Henry. I remember clearly a good friend of mine who was a Raiders fan when John Gruden was the head coach there the second time, and they trade away Khalil Mack to try to get some good picks. And everyone's like, hey, what are you thinking? And he goes, well, we're not winning with him, so let's see what we can do in the future. And I think there were some trade speculations in the offseason of what may happen to Derrick Henry. Fluke or for real for Tyjae Spears this week? Or for like next week? Fluke. Don't start him next week. But maybe put him into like your waiver priorities and see if you can get him, or maybe get him Wednesday morning after the waivers have gone through. Don't maybe spend a priority or fab on him in that kind of way. But tide may be shifting over here in Tennessee.
It may be, yeah. I'll just go snap share for Derrick Henry, 59%. For Tyjae Spears, 53%. Spears out-carried him 13-7. Derrick Henry had 2 more targets than him. Derrick Henry with 5. Tyjae Spears with 3. I don't know. This is something to watch here. This is something to watch for sure. We're gonna have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Another guy here in that same game, Josh Downs, a guy that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, 15.7 fantasy points with Gardner Minshew coming in as the quarterback for the next few weeks. Take it away, Wes. Fluker for real.
I love you, Josh Downs. Please like and subscribe to Fourth and Troll and be on the show because I want to talk to you. Yeah, that's for real. I love the guy.
That is for real.
And you as a rookie wide receiver are just shy of 100 yards with 2 different quarterbacks in the center in that same game. Yeah, you're no joke. 6 catches, 6 targets. It's not too bad. I know there's Michael Pittman on there, and they've got some other talented tight ends and other players to get the ball to. And Jonathan Taylor's back. But Josh Downs is no freaking joke.
Yeah.
This is for real.
Yeah, if you're going to be in a spot here for the next few weeks, especially where Josh Downs is going to be extra and extremely attractive here for a flex play in your lineup.
Oh, he is so attractive. What a handsome guy.
His success, he's good. He's very good, bar none. His success in fantasy football kind of has coincided with when Gardner Minshew has been throwing the football. Anthony Richardson tends to, instead of taking the short route, use his feet and go. He tends to look for Michael Pittman Jr. That's not usually what Gardner Minshew is going to do. Gardner Minshew enjoys finding the guy short and letting him do work. Josh Downs is that guy. This is for real. One more guy in that game, though. DeAndre Hopkins, 22 fantasy points, 8 catches, 11 targets for 140 yards. He's reminding us that, hey, he's still Nuke. He's still that guy. He looked really, really good. They lost, but 11 targets for DeAndre Hopkins is something for real here. What do we think with DeAndre Hopkins?
I say so high.
Yeah.
Just because he will have enough games that whoever he's traded to will feel fine about it. But this is my opinion. I think the Titans offense is spiraling down into a near rebuild. I mean, I will not be surprised if in 2 weeks maybe, we see Will Levis under center. I will not be surprised if this is the kind of shift that we see. Tannehill is not going to help win for the Titans anymore. And obviously, the try with Malik Willis and most people are better than Malik Willis at quarterback. And I literally mean like in like the total population on the earth. No disrespect, but that was totally disrespectful of me.
I don't huge disrespect. He's bad.
Yeah. But I don't buy into Hopkins as a reliable fantasy option, not because I doubt him as a skill player whatsoever. If he went to any other team, if he went to the Chiefs like we had considered in the offseason, even maybe if he even went to New England, I still would have thought there's still something there. But I'm so out on the Titans offense that I can't say this is for real.
Yeah.
He is for real. but
he's for real. This isn't for real. Last piece here, just because I can't see. This might be his highest target game of the season. 11 targets.
Yeah.
He hasn't been getting these kind of targets, and it just doesn't look very good. So, fluky there with DeAndre Hopkins, maybe so high. Hey, Adam Thielen, stud for week 5 in my eyes, and hopefully everybody else's eyes now, because 27.7 fantasy points, 11 catches, 13 targets for 107 yards and a touchdown. It's for real, baby. It is so for real.
I cannot believe what's happening in Carolina.
Yeah.
Mostly because they're just not winning games, but mainly because Adam Thielen is playing so well here in fantasy football. I went into this offseason just beating the drum that rookie quarterbacks and first-time starters are not helpful for the wide receivers in fantasies. And
insane.
Look at Sam Howell and all the Commanders. It's not working. Look at what it's like for Jordan Love. You've got up and down games for Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Nico Collins seems to be an Andrew Luck type quarterback, so I'll give the pass on that. But
Stroud, but yeah.
I mean, what did I say? Nico Collins? Is that what I just said?
Nico Collins is probably he's so good at football. He probably is as good as Andrew Luck too. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly. C.J. Stroud is playing like Andrew Luck, but Bryce Young is not playing well. And Adam Thielen should be a lock for the rest of the season.
The wide receiver
should be locked
9.
into. I mean, he's playing better than some of the players that were drafted in the second round.
Insane.
You have to sit here and consider, because I mean, look, it went so viral last time. Let's do this again. Would you rather have Adam Thielen or Jalen Waddle? Would you rather have Adam Thielen or DeVonta Smith? Right now, I'd stick with Adam Thielen because he's dominating. 55K views.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Let's see what happens next week. DeVonta Smith, 9 touchdowns.
Yeah, run it back again. There you go. No, Adam Thielen is just playing lights out. I mean, this is a big reason why Hayden Hurst, we talked about it on the last episode, why Hayden Hurst was a top 10 tight end candidate for me this year. It's because I knew Bryce Young needed to find somebody. And I thought that would be Hayden Hurst. Turns out it's Adam Thielen. Gets the garbage time touchdown, but in fantasy football, that doesn't even matter. There you go. 27.7 fantasy
golden
points.
time touchdown.
I know. Jaleel McLaughlin, rookie running back for the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams ends up not playing. Jaleel McLaughlin and Samaje Perine about split the work pretty much, but McLaughlin 9 carries for 68 yards, 3 catches for 21 yards, and a receiving touchdown, and an epic receiving touchdown, I will add. The freaking catch was incredible. 17.9. And I'm going to say for real on this, actually. I think he actually has a chance to play his way into a legitimate role in this offense. Javonte Williams hasn't looked great. Samaje Perine hasn't looked great. Jaleel McLaughlin has been the best-looking running back, especially over the last couple of weeks. And so I think there's a chance he might have legitimate value. I don't know. I don't want very many Denver Broncos as it is, but Jaleel McLaughlin, I think, has flex potential.
You know what this reminds me of, and it's such a shame because you know how big I was on Javonte Williams last year. I thought he was going to be top 5, and he was on pace for something special last year. But it reminds me of Michael Carter in New York on the New York Jets. Michael Carter showed something really special his rookie year, but he was just not on a good team. And then they get Breece Hall. And I remember when we were talking about Breece Hall and Michael Carter, and you're talking about the combine grade and whatever it is where he was like 99% the greatest football player of all time for Breece Hall. And I started to feel like that wasn't it because Michael Carter looks so good. And you said something that has still stuck with me. You texted back, Michael Carter may be good, but they still drafted Breece Hall. And that is, I think, maybe what has happened. coincidentally, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams both went to UNC. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is just this effect that has happened. I think Javonte Williams might have lost, not totally, it might be a tandem, it might be a three-headed backfield, but what I see from Jaleel McLaughlin's stat line, more than him being for real, is Javonte Williams is a fluke for fantasy this season.
Yeah. It feels that way for sure. It definitely does.
That is hard to say.
To say the least, yeah. George Pickens, 26.6 fantasy points, 6 catches for 100 yards. 6 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. Fluke, I think.
I know he can do this again, but it's just like what happens when Deontay Johnson is back.
Right.
Like, I know Pickens is good, but
yeah.
And I have Pickens in, I think, like 2 leagues. And even after seeing this, who intentionally drafted him thinking, yeah, this can happen, even I'm still like, I don't know if I just roll him out again. It's going to be matchup circumstances. It's going to be different when Deontay Johnson's back, who could be back next week or the week after that. We don't really know the timeline still, but he's it's around that time when he's supposed to be back. I've been hearing his name a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe say Fluke.
Yeah, I think it's fluky, and they've got a bye week this week, and then I think that's why Deontay went on IR is because they had an early bye week, and so I'm expecting Deontay Johnson back by week 7, and I just think I think it's going to be I think Kenny Pickett is going to end up trusting Deontay Johnson more, so I think that's where that's going to go. But Pickens obviously has the big playability, had the long touchdown. That's what happened. Matt Canada was pissed off. I don't know if you saw that angle. That was hilarious.
He was pissed off.
Did you see this? Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator, I think Kenny Pickett checked the play at the line of scrimmage. So they called in a play. He got to the line, checked the play, saw Pickens was one-on-one, and took the shot. And I guess the play was designed to do something else because the shot in the box, down in the corner here where you see that play is going on, and Matt Canada is sitting there. And everyone in the background is going crazy when they score the touchdown. Matt Canada is just... it's ridiculous. I don't know what's going on in
Steelers
Pittsburgh.
fans hate Matt Canada.
They're
so sick of him. Can you imagine that kind of play happening and you see Matt Canada again? Oh my gosh. People are like, Steelers fans are actually trying to get into Mike Tomlin's DMs and messages and say, fire Matt Canada. Like they cannot stand him.
Yeah, fire Canada is being chanted at the stadium.
Who chants for a coordinator to get fired at a stadium?
Yeah, how bad do you have to
That
be?
is absurd.
It's so bad.
Thank you for sharing
Jordan,
this.
You're welcome. Jordan Addison, 18.4 fantasy points. For real, baby. He finally, I believe, is passing KJ Osborne on the depth chart. They ran the same amount of routes. They had the same amount of targets, they ran the same amount of routes. They did not have the same amount of targets. Jordan Addison, 18.4 points, 6 for 64 and a touchdown. If Justin Jefferson is not playing this upcoming week, Jordan Addison could be in for a big one. Whenever Jefferson went out, that game was close. Game on the line, 1-score game. Kirk Cousins was looking at Jordan Addison towards the end of that game. So that was at. Justin Jefferson's on the sideline. Who do you go to when you don't have Jefferson? It's Jordan Addison. Looks pretty good there. That's for real. Desmond Ridder, 21.2 fantasy points. Fluke.
Do it again, mofo. Oh, no way.
Yeah, next. There you go. Fluke, there you go. Hey, and then let's start with some tight ends, because his tight end, Kyle Pitts, 15.7 fantasy points, 11 targets. Ooh, all right, what are we doing here?
Fluke. No way. No way, man.
I don't know if you can have confidence rolling Kyle Pitts back out into your lineup, so good luck. Do it. Both of you guys, do it again. and then we'll seriously talk about it. There you go. Dalton Schultz, hey, he showed up to play football, I guess. 7 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. Fluke. That's a fluke. There you go. And then Daren Waller, 16.6 fantasy points. Best game of the season.
Hold on.
Yep.
If Tyrod Taylor plays next week, roll Daren Waller out. That's what I think. Just absolutely start him.
I think so. Waller was having a decent game with Daniel Jones. 16.6 from a tight end is great. You feel great about that. Maybe this was a confidence boost. Maybe practice this week was just Dable with a megaphone in Daniel Jones' ear going, Waller!
Yeah.
Waller! Waller! Daren! Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's what that was. But I hope, if I had to guess, it was something like that. Because there you go, 11 targets for Daren Waller, 8 for 86. He ended up, there was a shot to the end zone where he could have brought in like a 30-yard touchdown too that would have made the week just fantastic. Couldn't haul it in, but the shot was there, and so it's exciting to see. It looks like he is maybe going to be a little more featured in this offense. Let's keep rolling him out. I feel good about it. So there you go. Let's jump into some of the bad here because we had just a few names to break down. Jonathan Taylor, we already talked about it. This is a fluke with 4.4 points. He only played 15% of snaps. He's going to be more involved as time goes on. They did not pay him to play him for 15% of snaps. There you go. That's that. So, fluke. DeVonta Smith, 1 catch for 6 yards. It's a fluke. But I'm about 1 game away from saying it might be for real.
It's surprising to me. Obviously, you know, and all you trollers that were with us in the offseason know how high I was on DeVonta Smith. I thought this was going to be such an incredible season for him. And it still can. The season's still young. He could get rolling. And he did last year, towards the end of the year. At the end of the season, he was destroying all people in fantasy. I lost in the semifinals because of DeVonta Smith against the Cowboys. He destroyed. So it's still possible that he's going to find that step. But I'm a little surprised how much attention is going to A.J. Brown compared to how little is going to DeVonta Smith. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's another game like this where he's starting to look very touchdown dependent. Starting to look like a Gabe Davis almost. I know he's better. I know he's going to be great.
He's very talented. Obviously, he won the Heisman Trophy in college. It's not a size thing. It's just I'm wondering how impactful that conversation on the sideline against the Vikings may have actually been.
Dude, what is with that? That may have.
I'll just stat here real quick. Since week 3, so week 2 was that game against Minnesota. Since week 3. A.J. Brown, 35 targets. DeVonta Smith, 19 targets.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown, 433 yards. DeVonta Smith, 112. A.J. Brown, 2 touchdowns. DeVonta Smith, no touchdowns. It is... Wow. I don't know what was said. And I know they were like, oh, no, it wasn't about his involvement. Okay. Sure. Yeah, let's keep saying that. AJ Brown is we were worried after a couple weeks, but AJ Brown is the guy that we drafted in the first round. AJ Brown was my first round pick in fantasy this year in our league West because I was a believer, and he is doing it over the last 3 weeks. 9 for 131 on 14 targets, 9 for 175 and 2 touchdowns on 13 targets. 6 for 127 on 8 targets. He is definitely the go-to in the passing game still, and it looks to be that way. So we need to see what happens in another week with DeVonta Smith because we both love him. We both think he's a tremendous talent, and but if he's not getting the football thrown his way, I don't know how much more we can do. So something to monitor there as we go into week 6. Miles Sanders, 1.2 fantasy points, 7 carries for 32 yards. He has a fumble. Tough matchup. He was somebody that I was actually benching where I could because I knew the Lions had a good run defense, but I think this groin injury that he's supposedly fine from is not something he's so much fine from. Chuba Hubbard is getting work and is seeming to get more work and will continue to get more work than Miles Sanders, I think, until this groin injury goes away. I mean, I know they said he was fully healthy, but maybe it was just a bad week, bad matchup, but it's definitely a timeshare here, and Miles Sanders is not what we hoped he would be. So 1.2 is probably a fluke, but he's probably a touchdown-dependent flex play at this point.
You were higher on him than I was in the offseason, so for me, I'm willing to say this is for real, but it'll definitely be matchup-dependent for Miles Sanders going forward.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. Jameson Williams on the other side of the ball, first game back, 2.2 fantasy points, 2 catches on 3 targets for 2 yards. They had designed plays for him. They were there. Just didn't end up working out. There will be better days ahead, I'm sure, but I don't know. I'm not looking to roll him out next week just because I'm like, oh, he got his first game back under his belt. There you go. So gonna have to wait and see on Jameson Williams. Derrick Henry, we already talked about Tyjae Spears. Derrick Henry, this is looking like it's for real. We're gonna have to see. Maybe he gets traded. Maybe he goes somewhere. But 9.2 is not great, especially when you drafted him where you drafted him at.
Yeah, and I really think the back injury is playing a big deal. Did you hear about that? Yeah, he's got a back injury from carrying the team for the last 5 years.
Doesn't he actually have a back injury, though?
He may have some kind of injury. I don't know if it's.
I thought he actually had something this offseason that was bad. And I was like, you're bringing that back up. Okay, all right. Well,
okay. No, it's literally. I think he's literally being worn down. I think he has been worn down to the bone, and he may still be a Hall of Famer. It doesn't affect what happens this season or not, but like they have used up the last few drops of Derrick Henry, and they can't win a game. I mean, they've won twice, but that's for real.
That's for real. Kyren Williams, 7.7 fantasy points, 13 carries, 53 yards. He's still played 86% of the snaps. He's still that guy. I think this is kind of fluky, but I will say only 2 targets, 2 catches for 4 yards. This could be because Cooper Kupp is back. I'm not sure if we went, okay, Tutu Atwell scored a touchdown. Puka Nacua still had 20 fantasy points. Cooper Kupp doesn't seem to be affecting those guys. I think potentially he's affecting the PPR value of Kyren Williams. I think that could be where we're at with this because there are guys that are able to get more open down the field now that Cooper Kupp is back. There's less checkdowns having to happen, but I'm still rolling out Kyren Williams. He's got a great matchup this week against Arizona. I'm not worried about Kyren Williams. Maybe there was a little bit of the hip injury that like he didn't practice with last week, but they still were going to roll him out. He's still fine. He's playing over 80% of snaps. He's still the guy there. He's still good. So roll him out, but I think this was a fluke.
Yeah, and just to add on to what their Super Bowl run looked like, Cam Akers was doing well before his injury, and Darrell Henderson looked pretty good too. I think Kyren Williams is better than both of those running backs. So I think this is going to be fine. I think we probably have already seen the best of Kyren Williams' fantasy performances now that Cooper Kupp is back, but I don't feel concerned about this single-digit outing from Kyren Williams. I think he'll be fine. It's also different when you're playing against the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, so that also plays in effect.
Yeah, not a lay-down defense, so there you go. But fluky for Kyren Williams this week. Garrett Wilson, 8.4 fantasy points. He seems to continue to be a touchdown-dependent play, but I think he's too talented for you to not roll him out unless you have much better options. So it's disappointing. The Broncos defense, we thought maybe we had a really good opportunity here for Garrett Wilson to have a get-right game, for Zack Wilson to have a good game. Not so much. I think he's touchdown-dependent. I feel okay that I mean, it was a risk, but I feel okay that I traded him away after week 1 when Rodgers went down. So we'll have to see what happens. It's a little bit disappointing, especially it's a lot disappointing, especially with where we drafted him at this year. Yeah, nothing to add. Just upsetting that we know why this is for real. Yeah. A couple of Cowboys here just to close it out against a really strong 49ers defense. Tony Pollard, 8.4 fantasy points, and CeeDee Lamb, 8.9 fantasy points. For Tony Pollard, I believe this is a fluke. Because Tony Pollard, we know, can be very good, and this was a very good defense. CeeDee Lamb, I'm a little worried, because Dak Prescott looks like trash. We knew it coming into the year. We called it coming into the year. Dak Prescott was not very good. And we knew he wasn't very good, and we were worried about what was going to happen. And there was a reason now why Jake Ferguson is a known name in the fantasy football world. Because really, Dak Prescott needs a go-to. That's looking like it's Jake Ferguson. CeeDee Lamb he's doing his best with what he's being given, but the Cowboys' offense doesn't look very good, if I'm being honest. And I think you said it best, Wes. We didn't see it because we were distracted by how good and dominant the Cowboys' defense was. We think about the New England game, 38-3, and we're like, oh yeah, Cowboys steamrolled. And then you're like, oh, they had 2 defensive touchdowns. Tony Pollard didn't look very good. It wasn't a very good game for CeeDee Lamb either. Wow, all right, well, this offense might not be very good. And I'm not going to say it, but the Chargers offense looks good, and the Cowboys offense no longer does. So we might see Kellen Moore get a head coaching job in the next couple of years here, because I don't know. It may be the scheme here, but the Cowboys offense just doesn't look good. So fluke for Tony Pollard, but flirting with for real for CeeDee Lamb, I think.
I have nothing to add. I agree wholeheartedly, and it's 100% on Dak Prescott. In the fantasy world, this is, I know you still believed, we both still believed in CeeDee Lamb to be top 15, but this was why I bumped him out of my top 10, because I did not like all of this. Yeah. That's it. Fluke for real.
Everything could come. Yeah.